I'd like you to think of the first time that you encountered teacher burnout. Where you were, what was going on at the time, what the feelings were like, the experiences, the surroundings. I'll tell you what it was for me. I was new and I was fresh. I was idealistic and I was going to change the world. I was a new Rebbe in a high school in Chicago. And we would convene after davening in the teacher's lounge every day for breakfast. And sometimes when we were in a certain mood, we would play a game. Now, typically speaking, one doesn't think of teachers' lounges and games. Certainly no chess or Scrabble going on. But the game that we played, I refer to in retrospect as the game of the vanishing calendar. And the way the game would work is as follows. It was the beginning of the year, and we'd already been teaching for a few days, and then we were thinking about when is our next vacation. How many days until the Yom Tovim? After Yom Tov, we'd come back and with gusto and with energy, and then the question, of course, would start to seep in again, when is the next break and vacation? And we'd think about winter break and finals week and all of the things coming up. And the way we played the game, thanks to one of our very talented colleagues, was as follows. If the day already started, it didn't count, because we were already there. The Fridays of every week, which were shorter, also didn't count. Any week with a shortened week, such as Thanksgiving week, that also didn't count. Finals week didn't count. Hanukkah didn't count. Rosh Chodesh didn't count. Any day with long davening didn't count. Special speakers didn't count. And by the time we were done, we taught for 4 days that year. 4 days. Now, it may be a joke, but our topic, burnout, is certainly not a joke. And the reason that this game, it was fun on the one hand, but it was actually very upsetting to me on the other hand. Because as I said before, I was idealistic. I was there to teach. I was going to change the world. I was going to raise a class of scholars and all of these young men and ladies, whoever I taught, that were going to be difference makers in the world. And here were my colleagues. 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 years my senior in teaching, and we seem to be playing this game of how can we get out of this as quickly as possible? How can we somehow have as few teaching days as possible? And I think all of us on some level are guilty of this. Too much snow? Oh, I don't have to teach today. And that's a reality. Look, we're all entitled to wanting a little bit of a break. But at the same time, we have to understand that burnout, whether it's in the full sense of the term, or maybe on a more reduced scale, it's an issue we all grapple with. Let's take a look at a few statistics. This bar that you see in front of you is the average rate of teachers leaving the field within the first 5 years. And as you can see, it's a very sizable number. This is, of course, the community at large, not specifically this community. But teachers tend to not stay for long periods of time necessarily because of challenges that we encounter. And even the teachers that stick around, or certainly the ones that are leaving, there's a very significant emphasis on what's called dissatisfaction. And dissatisfaction comes from a number of different things, and for everybody it's different. We all have our own reasons to be dissatisfied, but I'd like to point you in a couple of directions. Number one, we are asked to juggle a tremendous amount. For those of you who've been in teaching for a long time, maybe it was different when you first got started. But there's an expectation today. There's an expectation that we meet all of our students' needs in a variety of different ways. The special learners and the regular learners and the gifted learners. We have an expectation to be available on a communication level at all hours and all times. We are asked to be following up on a regular basis. We're asked to meet student needs. We're asked to just provide for our students in so many levels. And on top of it, so often, when we encounter difficult situations, we feel that our hands are tied. And we oftentimes feel like we don't even have recourse, something to do to make the situation better. So over time, it starts to take a toll. And not only does it impact our new teachers, I would submit to you, and this is just my own sense, that the issue is even greater for our veterans because we might stay in the field, but how much of our creativity and how much of our enthusiasm and how much of our ability to give and to affect and to influence and to inspire do we leave behind somewhere because we've become jaded along the way? And so the focus that I would like to share with you is, how can we regenerate? How can we build ourselves again? How can we focus on different areas of our life to ensure that there isn't a day, no matter what the circumstance, that we don't come and bring our A game and provide the very best for our students, however and whatever the circumstances? And I believe that if we address these 4 quadrants, these 4 areas that you see in front of you, it will go a huge way in allowing us to be there for our students in the way that they deserve, that their parents deserve, and frankly for us, the way that we deserve. And these are familiar because we know that we have to reach our students' needs or meet their needs on all of these levels, whether it's physical or mental or social emotional or spiritual. And the same is true for us. So let's unpack each of these a little bit, and let's understand how we can bring our very best selves to our work every day. And I would encourage you, as I encourage every audience that I speak with, try to think about 1 or 2 things of the ideas that we share that are most relevant to you. And I ask you, and if I may say so, I challenge you to commit, set a goal that you're going to do something from this list, even if you're already doing it, to do it a little bit better. And try to make it quantifiable, something that you could measure so that you know that you're doing it. And ideally, if you really want it to stick, find a partner in the room and share your goals before you go so that you are ensuring that each other holds you accountable to the goals that we set. So let's take a look at each one. The first one is physical. And physical is all about self-care. It's all about taking care of ourselves. And sometimes with our busy lives and the family needs and other responsibilities that we have, we forget to take care of ourselves, and we don't make it a priority. And over time, maybe at the beginning it's okay, but over time it starts to take a toll. And that's a matter of getting proper nutrition, feeding ourselves well, hydrating regularly so that our body has the fluids that it needs. It's about taking care of ourselves in terms of exercise and getting the physical stimulation that we need so that we can be there for our students. Okay, so when we talk about physical, it's all about making sure that we bring our very best selves. We're not relying on being overly caffeinated. We're not sort of winging it in a physical sense. We recognize the importance. We're sleeping enough as well. Do not underestimate the importance of a good night's sleep. And always make sure that you come in to the classroom having slept properly as best as you can. We understand that there are circumstances that may prevent that from time to time, but that certainly should be the priority. Let's talk now about mental. The mental game is perhaps in many ways the most important because it's all about the mindset that we bring to our profession. It's all about the way that we envision opportunities such as this, that we come together, and you are here because you understand the value of learning. You understand the importance of growth. And you recognize that the only way to do that is to feed and nurture yourself regularly with ideas that others can share with you, that you could share with each other, that are going to help you to become sharp and current and properly prepared to be as successful as possible. And I'd like to focus specifically on the item on the screen, which is the issue of mindset. Now, mindset, you're probably familiar, there are 2 extremes when it comes to mindset. There's the growth mindset, which is where we want to be, and then there's the fixed mindset. The fixed mindset says, I am who I am, what I can do is what it is, and that is all. And the result of that is we say to ourselves, I can do this, but not beyond. Whether that's incorporating more technology, whether it's utilizing different variations or groupings within our classroom, whether it's different types of questioning or assessment techniques. Whatever I feel I've mastered at the beginning, that's what I can do and no further. But the person with the growth mindset says, I can do it. I can grow. And if I can't do it, I cannot do it yet. It will come with practice. It will come with perseverance. It will come with consistency and with effort. So we recognize the value of learning. And by the way, to me, one of the biggest reasons that people feel a sense of burnout is because of a sense of stagnation. It's a sense that we are not growing. It's a sense that we are where we were. And even though we know we need to grow, sometimes we just say, another professional development training, another seminar, another this. Who needs it? I have enough on my plate. But even when we feel overwhelmed, and even when we feel perhaps even burdened, if we step outside of our comfort zone and we take on something new, and we're willing to say, you know what, let me incorporate at least one idea. I remember years ago when I was an educator living in Chicago, they used to have these seminars, and the person who ran them one time said to me, if everybody from the 3 hours, the 6 hours, however long the presentations were, if everybody came away with one action item, if everybody came away with one thing that was going to change, improve, and ideally transform their educational practice, that whole time that they were there was worthwhile. And I used to say, what do you mean? That's crazy. I just spent 3 hours, 6 hours for one idea? But over time, I've seen the wisdom of that. Because it's difficult to incorporate everything, despite all of the enthusiasm. But if you make that commitment, and you commit to something, and you're consistent about it, and you work with someone towards those goals, you can and you will achieve. So we've talked about physical, and we've talked about mental. Let's now talk about social, emotional. Because in my opinion, it's the emotion that drives the train. It's the emotion that makes us do the actions that we want to do. It's the emotion that really gives us the energy to move forward. And so let's talk a little bit about the social emotional piece and the importance of peers, the importance of each other. I don't know how much time you have before class or after class to talk with one another. If you don't have the time, make the time. I remember when I was in graduate school, one of the books we had to read was, I think it was called The Loneliest Job in the World. And it's not some scientist in the North Pole, although those people could be pretty lonely too. It's people like us who go into our classrooms day after day and close the door, and we interact with our students, but we lack the peer interaction. We lack the ability to share ideas with each other, to grow from one another, to ask a question and get a response. So whether it's in your faculty lounge, whether it's time that you make up every week on a Friday to grab coffee with a coworker and a colleague, whether it's participating in some kind of forum, physical or virtual, where you can share ideas and ask questions, it's very important to make sure you have people that speak your language at your level, right? That you can feel that you are really growing with other people. The connection is critical. The other part in this realm that I'd like to focus on, and this can be very hard for us because we are selfless. We have chosen this profession because we are putting others before self. On the other hand, if we don't focus on ourselves, if we don't take a time on occasion to pat ourselves on the back and say what a great job we are doing and the impact that we are having, ultimately we start to dry up a little bit. So take out all of those thank you cards that you get a couple of times a year, which I hope you're all getting, and trust me, you're not getting enough of them. But know that behind every class that you're giving and every year that you're teaching, there are students that you are affecting for eternity. I remember once when I was at a graduation of a senior class in our high school, and there was a student there who I taught as a freshman. And he had left the school after freshman year and gone off to a different school. I had taught him Navi. It was one time a week. It was less than 5 days a week because it was a rotational period on Fridays. And 3 years later, he comes to me at his former classmate's graduation, and he says to me, I want you to know that we had an assignment this past year, senior year. We had to write about an adult that made a difference in our life, and I want you to know I wrote about you. And I said, wow, that's incredible. I had you for one period. We interacted. It was fun. We enjoyed the class, whatever it was. But why did you write about me? He said, because whenever you were teaching, and by the way, this was Navi, whenever you were teaching, you were always having fun. Now, I didn't juggle, and I didn't tell too many jokes, and we didn't have that much banter going on, but there was an environment, there was an enthusiasm, there was an energy, and he felt it, and 3 years later he was inspired to write about it. So you never know where your influence goes. You never know when you are that role model. You are that person that makes the difference. And we never know. We can only imagine. But go ahead and imagine. I'm giving you permission to recognize your influence and think about all the young adults who one day may come back to you and say, you know what? You made a difference in my life. And then the final quadrant, the final sector, which is the spiritual piece. Imagine, it's very difficult, but even try to imagine this chusim, imagine the merit that you have. Everybody who goes out every day to make a livelihood, they do what they need to do to support their family and to give back to the community. But you do more because you earn every day in your work the ability to affect eternity. And you collect your zechusim as you are making your livelihood. So the spiritual domain is something that's obviously very important. And of course, daven for your students and keep them in your tefillos. And when you go to the kosel, have them in mind. But of course, in every day, and have yourself in mind, whether it's Baruch Aleinu or Ava Rabbah, have yourself and your opportunity to make a difference in mind every day so that you maximize the experience and that your students really gain from your tefillos. And of course, find opportunities to recharge your spiritual batteries as well. I don't know what that might mean for you. Maybe it's a trip to Eretz Yisrael. Maybe it's a visit to an old teacher. Maybe it's connecting with a Rav or somebody else that you look up to and speak with. But find opportunity to connect spiritually as well so that you feel that what you are doing, get the chizuk that you need. Attend events like this, of course. All of these make a difference. And so we've talked about the issues of burnout. They are real. The challenges are real. And the 4 quadrants don't address all of them. I didn't just tell you how to meet the needs of some of your more complicated students. I did not tell you what to do when it comes to communication. The one thing I did not mention, I'll quickly mention now, is coming back to physical for just a moment, is the idea of setting boundaries. Boundaries is an important piece. Everyone's boundaries may look different, but don't forget to set boundaries. Remember, you are entitled to your own time. You're entitled to family time. You're entitled to me time, as in rejuvenation, however that's defined. So we have to recognize we didn't solve everything, but when you are healthy at the core, when you emanate from a place of strength, when you emanate from a place of goodness, of positivity, of energy, of enthusiasm, many, if not all, other problems, in most cases, if not always, disappear on their own because you have the health, the fortitude, the intuition, and the wherewithal to solve and to deal with those challenges. And so I'd like to leave you with a famous Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. It's a Mishnah that we refer to a lot. I think it captures the essence of our conversation. Im ein ani li mili, from Hillel Hazaken, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me? That is the focus a lot in what we discussed this evening. We must be for ourselves because no one else will be, and certainly nobody else could be. Nobody can provide the physical and the spiritual and the mental and the emotional energy and support that we all need. The only one that can do it is you, for yourself. However, but if it's only for me, if I'm totally self-centered, if I'm only focused on me and my own needs, then what am I? And here's the last one that I'd like you to consider. V'im lo achshav emasai. To the degree that I have added something new to your thought process, to the degree that I've shared with you an idea that you didn't consider before, clearly you haven't taken that action until now. And so the call to action, and what I would encourage you all to do is think about achshav. Think about right now. What can I do to position myself the best way possible so when I walk through those school doors tomorrow, I am as ready physically, mentally, and otherwise as I possibly could be so that I could bring my very best self forward for the benefit of your students and for the benefit of yourselves. Thank you very much.